communication and how important it is in implementing anything, because it's an aspect that seems to not be given priority despite it being very vital. You've worked in a number of ministries, a number of areas. Let's talk about why communication is key.
Communication is vital. Actually, when cracking jokes with professional colleagues, I say communication is a lifestyle. Everything is communication. It is important in the sense that communication tends to drive ideas. It drives innovation. It drives, generally it drives development. As a career public servant, I can say communication is central in even government operations. Without communication, citizens will not understand what the government is talking about. Citizens will not understand what the government wants to do for them. And without communication, the government will not understand what the citizens want to be done for them. So communication facilitates exchange of information from the government to the citizens and from the citizens to the government. That way now fulfills the philosophy of government, that it exists on the goodwill of the people. So the people accept their government by what it does for them, and for this to be known, then communication plays a central role. So really this has always been my engagement, telling people about what the government is doing and telling the government about what the citizens want, besides other issues. So right now I'm working for a government project. K Dr. Deep is a government project, and in this project it is a new project, a project that actually has come to drive the so-called better policy government. That is the bottom-up transformation agenda, economic transformation agenda, which is the policy on which the government now rides on to promote development right from the grassroots to the top. When I joined the project, I didn't know, because it was under the previous regime, I didn't know that I was playing a role in actually preparing the new regime to understand what bottom-up economic transformation agenda means. K Dr. Deep is founded on that very agenda, in that it's community-driven. Actually, it's community-driven development. So communities identify their own development needs. They prioritize their own development needs. Then they seek, they factor all these development needs into community work plans. And then they present these work plans to their county governments. The county government validates them and then requests through the county steering committee that these are the valid interventions that K Dr. Deep should step in to help. So through K Dr. Deep, then it is processed to the ministry responsible, that is the Ministry of East African Community, ASALs and Regional Development, which again also seeks concurrence from the World Bank. This is a World Bank funded program. So through that process, we have come to realize that indeed communities, if well guided, are able to take control of their own initiatives. And so here communication was critical, because communities could not make decisions without having their right information. And so my business here was to enable the communities to have the right information in order to make appropriate decisions on matters that affected their lives. Our communication in the project actually was anchored on the expectations of CDD, in that people want information. So my business was information disclosure all through. I give the community information. Now it becomes actually the responsibility of the community themselves to permeate this information across such that it enables them in their own interactions to make appropriate decisions in as far as the development was concerned.
All right. Talking of communication and what you are relaying to the communities, because for them to embrace the project, they have to understand what it's all about. And you are dealing with people from different parts of the country. Wajir, they speak different languages. Turkana, did that present a challenge to you when it comes to relaying the information, or what avenues did you employ to ensure that you are actually reaching the right audience and they were consuming the truth?
Fine, challenges exist. But you see, in communication, you don't need to talk to every person. You only need to target some audience, and that audience will help in disseminating the information you are sharing. So what I did is that I understood the challenges. In Turkana, there are more of Turkana. In Garissa and Wajir, the areas that we operated in Lagdera, Fafi, Dadaab, and Wajir South, and then Turkana West. All these, there are variations in terms of even understanding. So I don't speak the local language, but there are people who can understand English and Swahili, and there are quite a number. So I employed strategies that could target specific people, could convey our message to those that don't understand. And the good thing with these communities, they listen to those who know. Yeah, actually, you find even an illiterate mzee and wants to understand something, runs to his child in school to interpret for him certain things. But what worked for us best is community radio stations. We engaged community radio stations to engage with the communities on our behalf. Actually, what I can say I scored highly is on the use of media as a way to reach these people, and in this case, community radio. I did not use TV, and if it was TV, then it must be a TV station that speaks the local language. But largely, I used community radio stations where people were free to call in, and there was an interpreter and what have you. I went to several community radio stations together with other players in the field to tell people about what the project is, the community roles and responsibilities in the implementation process, and any other information that they demanded. The people could ask questions directly using that media, and we could be able to respond. And actually, we capacity built journalists in those areas to speak on our behalf. I must say the journalists in those areas were converted into Kate of the Deep ambassadors. So anytime people want, the journalists are able to speak on our behalf. I don't need to speak from Nairobi. And that is how we managed to make everybody aware about the project. When World Bank did its we call it end project survey, they actually gave communication at 6%. I feel proud of it, because again, there was no influence in this. This is World Bank's study, but it's like everybody got to know about what Gate of the Deep was, what were the objectives, and what it stood to benefit the local people. So that's what I can say. And in achieving this, we did quite a lot of, we put in place a lot of communication infrastructure to be able to, other than sharing information, to manage knowledge as well. I was handling the knowledge management bit of the project. One of the things that again proved to be a major area in our communication was the website. Our website was well updated, and it keeps on to be updated. It contained all the projects that we were implementing. You could find them on our website. The cost, where they are, who is to implement them, when they are supposed to be implemented. All that is on our website. So the community doesn't need to come to Nairobi to find what they have benefited from. At a press of a button, they have a whole list they print and walk around with it in the villages. So that way, people got to know that this financial year, this is what is lined up for us. Next financial year, the previous financial year, this is what we achieved. And they know the amount that is going to those areas. That promoted transparency. And with that transparency, the community was able to cultivate trust in the project. And that is why we got a lot of buy-in from the communities. The other thing that we did was use of social media. Social media in those areas, I came to realize, like in Turkana, talk of even Wajir and Garissa, we have a lot of following on Facebook. After I did my baseline study and discovered that social media was actually one of the best venues, channels to use, so I developed a page and an account. And through this, people could see themselves and what they were doing. And by so doing, they could be able to identify themselves with the project. Once I post an activity that is taking place in a village, the villagers feel happy and they get they actually own that, and they know there's somebody speaking for us. So essentially, using that strategy, information passed quite fast. I could engage directly with those who are interested in getting information on Facebook, and this was the main social media channel I can say I used. On knowledge management, we did a lot of activities. I must appreciate that this was one of the projects that had one of the best IT specialists. It's called Anthony Karoki. Anthony Karoki helped us to establish what we call management information system. This is a management system where we have all our investments uploaded into. And in this one, you will see project A at this budget. It was done and completed this time. It was done at this cost. It is meant to support this number of communities or benefit this number of people. It is meant to, these are the safeguard requirements for it, and it will show all the safeguard requirements were uploaded to that MIS. So if it is an NEMA license, and if the project required an NEMA license, you will see the NEMA license there. If it required an MOU from the county government or national government, you will see that MOU in that. If it required, let's say, some license, you will see it there. And that is how we promoted this function. Actually, you could even see which community project management committee that handled a specific sub-project for using that MIS. Other than that, we also developed a dashboard, a visual digital dashboard. In this dashboard, if you want to know a certain project in, let's say, Wajir, you just click at that and it will bring you all the details through the geo-coordinates. It will show you where it is located. Even when you are going to do a supervision or wherever, monitoring, you just, that dashboard will direct you to where that project is. And I think this made communication very central in driving the information sharing, in driving feedback processing and all that. But most importantly, again, in this knowledge management, we did a lot of studies. These studies enabled us to understand where we were as a project, where we wanted to go, and where we had come from. What was the thinking of the people on the ground? We did a study, I remember very well, with Dr. Joy. She's now with the State Department of Hassels, on women empowerment in Turkana. And the results were messy. The women were speaking about themselves. The women were saying how much the project had impacted in their lives and all that. That gave us a basis and motivation to even do more and change strategies where we needed to in order to empower these women even more. We did consumer satisfaction studies. We did other studies like we did one on the role of CDD and so on. So these studies enable us. But how did we arrive at these studies? We could not go everywhere and we did not consult anybody. The studies were done by the community communities themselves. How? We could get youths, train them how to collect data, and using technology, IT technology. Actually, we used Corpo Toolbox. So we could get youths from those areas. We give them questionnaires. Questionnaires are fed on the toolbox, and by the use of their mobile phones, they could get us data. We analyze data, and some of the data that we got could amaze you. What you could find coming from perhaps Lakdera, you will find it coming again from Wajir South. You could find it coming from Turkana West. So you could see that could now give you a comparative view of your performance. And that is how we use the communities to do studies for us, and we use scientific methods to drive this. I think that is one area that I can say knowledge management is also an inseparable component in making any development project of this nature a success.
Right, very good. You talked of social media as well, and it's one of the things that is currently being embraced by so many people. People are consuming content on social media, and there are some emerging trends whereby someone can be seated in Nairobi and posting on Facebook about something in Garissa. But you are one of those people who has been on the ground. As a communication specialist, you are always on the ground, you've interacted with the projects. How important is it for a communication specialist to actually report what they can actually see for themselves from the ground?
Pardon? How?
How important is it for someone who is dealing in matters communication to be on the ground, and whatever it is they are posting based on first-hand experience?
Let me tell you, at the times we tend to underrate communication. And we tend to, even when we talk about the project, we talk, oh, this project needs to be owned. We forget that even communication, we do need to be owned. All right? That's one factor that we forget. That somebody wants to see himself in that communication for it to make sense to him. So communication per se is about sharing of ideas, giving feedback, and people identifying themselves with whichever idea that they are sharing. So in my experience in this area is that particularly in those areas, and not even particularly, you see, even when you read a newspaper and the newspaper is talking about you, you will actually keep that newspaper forever because it has spoken about you. So the message in that paper, in that communication should be in a way that it resonates with the expectations of your audience. So in this case, we understood our audience. We understood what they wanted. And for your information, immediately I joined KWD, I did a baseline survey myself. So I could know which areas to focus on and which areas that were not very important and how to go about them. I identified even the community radio stations that were listened more to and could serve the purpose. So with that kind of study, I was able to understand that if you don't associate the community in your communication, then that communication will go flat and you will not even get feedback. But when you see I post something and you see likes, coming in, then you see you are talking to someone. Now, this was my strategy. As a project, I followed a number of groups. And in this case, I targeted groups at county levels and groups that belong to county governments. These groups have a lot of followers. Like in Garissa, we have over 60,000 followers. Wajir the same, Turkana the same. When you post your information there, and several other like-minded people, when you post there, you will see MPs have seen it, MCAs have seen it, opinion shapers have seen it, other players have seen it, students have seen it. So within a very short time, I reached almost 1 million people through these platforms. That was the best strategy. And then I was monitoring whether really people are appreciating what I was doing. When after a day or so I follow what I posted in all this, I find them intact. So no group that removed what I was posting in these platforms. So So that showed that through these groups, my information was reaching people in their bedrooms. They could even reach people in wherever they are, in their assemblies, wherever they are. They would say, "Hey, Dr. Deep has posted something." So that is how I managed to get information across the communities. And indeed, as much as people could say, "Oh, there are no smartphones, there are people there are poor," there are those that have the smartphones and they control actually the information flow in the villages. Yeah.
Okay. And the fact that you used, let's talk about the lessons you learned and the fact that you are always on the ground. You are always with your phone recording. If it's something you're going to post, it emanates from you. You are the one who recorded, and it's how important is that for a communication expert to be on the ground?
Very important. Don't, I tell people, communication has no business at the office desk. What do you do at the office desk? Communication is about involvement. It's about participation. It's about engagement. Your responsibility is to be with the people that you want to tell your information. And your responsibility is also to bring back the feedback about your information to the organization that you serve. So desk perhaps for other administrative functions, but essentially communication is where people are. And when you do it yourself, it is easier to even see what you need to capture. It is easier for you to even through the body language to understand what people want. So they don't need to tell you one-on-one, but from the word and everything else, you'll be able to control. And then number two, it is easier to edit, such that you don't become a partaker in disseminating adverse information. We were very careful on that one, because one word, one sentence from a disgruntled person will spoil the rest of the activity that you want to do. So we were very careful to ensure that the people, the information we share serves the purpose. And this is normal with any media communication. You have a policy. You don't go publicizing what is not supported by your policy. So our focus here is the community. What does the community want, and how will the community benefit from our interventions? That was the focus. Anything outside that, we will not begin the people to publicize. But I want to report that while there could be challenges like from Garissa, for instance, the media ignored quite a lot sideshows. We had a lot of grievances from Garissa, but the media chose to ignore. Reason? The media was well capacity built, it was well sensitized, it understood the project, so they knew what was true and what was false. They know what was a sideshow and what was real. In areas where things appear to be real, they could contact us so that we give the right position. If they find it valid to report, they were free, but it was balanced. But they did not, with the sideshow people, to publicize what they were doing that could negate the gains of the community. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, from my end.
Yeah.
Kosawa Charlotte.
You know, Moses has covered everything.
Everything.
And I was going to ask him about managing emotions, because some people cannot appreciate good things, and they are looking for aspects of the projects that they can highlight which are counter, and that gives you a role of the PR functions. And I think you can talk about that slightly, even though I know you addressed it already, but it is a question of focusing energy to the right areas for the best output.
Definitely, a project like this one could attract emotions, and attracted quite a number of emotions. But our entry into it was one of the best PR strategies that any community development that is introduced to communities in that location needs to apply. We used an IFP, we call it facilitating partner. We engaged a facilitating partner who was an NGO in that particular area. an NGO that is well versed with the people, that is working with the people in that particular locality. And these people were readily accepted. So when they were sharing our information, it was very easy. So they helped us to build relationships between the community and the project. That's where it began. And then now the PR game that this project played, and actually CDD's PR, was to involve the community. The community could come into an assembly. We call it community assembly, but it's a public baraza that we know. And the public barazas in those areas are the avenues for information sharing. So they could come, they could make their own decisions freely, and then this information is carried, it's escalated. So first we got accepted there. And when we got accepted there, the community accepted before the other players could come in. So if the politicians could be the people to be used, or other people to reach the communities, stories could be distorted. But we used these professional NGOs to build relationships on our behalf. And after these relationships, now it became very difficult for other players from outside to penetrate, because the communities had understood, had owned this project. So that was one. Now, the emotions that followed, in most cases, were very easy to deal with, because they did not have the support of the community. And the emotions that could come from the community were actually blaming the politicians of their own, that they are interfering with them. You see now? So we created a barrier against interference. So when you look at our statistics, for those that are concerned with grievance handling, the greatest number of grievances were about political interference and elite capture. There was very minimal complaint from the communities, because the community was sensitized. What we were doing is for them. And one thing that you need to note, Dr. Deep was just a vessel. The money that the government gave to these communities was not handled by anybody by way of expenditure other than the community itself. So the community, the sub-project committees opened bank account. So when we get money, we prepare the AIEs. The AIEs are in respect of those specific sub-projects. When it goes to the county, to the counties, this money is wired to these community accounts. Not even the coordinator can take a shilling. Yeah? Unless the CPMC collects that money and gives to the coordinator. But the coordinator cannot even collect a shilling. You know? That was the best strategy. So this minimized complaints, because the complaints surrounded money. Actually, when you look at the complaints that we got, were those from contractors. And these contractors are not locals. These are people who have moved from urban areas. Some come from ECD, some come from South B, and all. They realize there are opportunities in those areas. So when they go there, they start competing for tenders. And when you don't get, you know now, you will create stories to undermine the processes and what. And those are the challenges we dealt with in most cases. But really, we had very minimal complaints from the community. And in any case, the complaints were about people who were interfering with the community. Yeah. So that's how we manage emotions. Emotions actually were managed by the communities themselves. As here, when they come, we will talk to them, we will give them the facts. But when you realize, like, I liked the way the Garissa people handled, people could run to court, and the community could call whoever is complaining in court, sit under a tree, and tell him, no, go and withdraw that case. So most of the cases that went to court in Garissa were actually resolved by the elders under a tree. So this means that the communities were able to handle the emotions themselves. So it gave us very easy. But all that we fought to do was to make sure, and from my side, is to make sure that the relationship between the project and the communities is above board. Anything that affected the community, we were there to deal with it. And I think that worked for us. We had very minimal emotional, adverse emotions from the communities, but we had several from the interested groups who did not even have understanding about the project. Yeah.
Moses, that's a whole program. That is like 30 minutes plus of talking. So I think.
I even thought ijafika 40. He's a communicator.